Very nearly about sailing. November 2022. This November always catches me by surprise because it's only 30 days, so I thought I could do the video tomorrow, which is the 31st, except there isn't a 31st. So this one is just one small project and it's really all about this stuff. JB Weld. Now, as I think I said before, I used this JB Weld stuff to solve a problem on one of my bass guitars that I was going to sell but couldn't do because the nut at the top of the truss rod was broken. Basically you adjust it by, you have to take loads of bits off and then you have an Allen key thing and then you twist it around, not very much, and it's a little, think of this like a mast, and this is the rigging, so this is the rigging pulling it forwards and the truss rod pulls it back and you have to get the balance just right. So the action is okay, but I think in the factory actually, because this was new, it had been in stock for a long time, this is new, and it was the Allen key wasn't working at all. It was just going round and round. It was stripped because it's the nut is actually a very soft metal and you can't see it at all. So basically I took it all apart, took the neck off, took that out, videoed it all, filled it with JB Weld, put a hexagonal HDPE bar in there, and it worked really well, and then I didn't have the footage. And then I had other problems because, which you'll see later, I actually had to end up taking the fingerboard, that's this bit off, stripping the whole thing apart, but guitars are like boats, they always take an awful lot longer. So what I did is I saved that footage, and I had another project which was to do with fixing a door handle which was loose, which is exactly the same principle, because I did want to show this stuff. I've used it in the past, it's really, really good. So if you're interested in JB Weld, just watch the first bit where I do the door handle. If for some reason you got here because you're interested in guitars, and I am brutal to this thing, you know, really, really brutal. If you thought me stripping the rudder in half was brutal, you wait till you see what I do with this. But it's sorted, it's all back together, it works. I'm going to keep it now. I was going to sell it, I'm not going to sell it. It's such a pretty guitar, it's such a lovely guitar. So anyway, JB Weld, good stuff. Let's get on with it. Right, so because I lost the footage, this is a sort of equivalent. So this is the door handle, and you can see that there's not much slack in it. It moves a little bit, and it's sort of springy from the start, and then the striker, no, that's the striker, I don't know what that thing is called. But on the other side, it is really loose, and it only just withdraws. So what I'm going to do is use that, take that part and use that and do it with JB Weld, and it should be the same sort of principle. Actually it should be a bit easier, but that's famous last words, isn't it? Right, so in real life it's very easy to see that this has got a strange sort of split in it, which seems to be a design, but it makes it loose, and I think that circlip's supposed to keep it tight, but it's not. So I don't think it's broken or it's warm, it's just a very bad design. And interestingly, I've taken the other side off, and this has actually been glued in the past, so that's absolutely solid and it's not coming out. If I do a close-up here, I think you can see that that's wriggling around quite a lot in there, and that should be a snug fit. So yeah, that just shows how bad the problem is. Right, so I'm going to put a reasonably generous amount of JB Weld because it's quite a deep hole. Now I have to admit I haven't done a particularly good job of cleaning this out, and I haven't even attempted to, because it doesn't really need to stick to the sides there, it just needs to be solid in its own right. I can't imagine that this isn't enough. And what I've done is I've set this up so I can have it so this drips downwards, and this is basically sellotape, and then I've put some beeswax around it so it shouldn't stick. The worry about with epoxy is never is it gonna stick, it's there's certain things I don't want it to stick to. So basically what I did a similar thing when I did the truss rod. I had these two hexagonal bolts. One of them I rounded off, put a thread in there because it had to go through from the bottom, because it was literally a hollow tube, so it was threaded at the bottom. So I waxed it, threaded it through from the bottom, and then the top was a little bit like here. And what I did there is I cut the hexagonal, I sanded the edges of this down so that it was the same size as the hex key, the Allen key. That's the thing you adjust the truss rod with, that is hexagonal. And then I pushed that in there and held it there and let it dry, and then crossed my fingers, and yes, it did pull out, and it did work, as you will see, because I don't know what order I will show these videos in, because obviously I did video this when I was doing the truss rod, and my hard disk went and I lost that video. It serves me right for not backing it up. Right, cup of tea time. And by the way, the way that you open a door without a door handle is quite simple. That is about the same squareness as that. So you literally can open it, no problem. Right, so there it is. That's the bit that I put the stuff in. This is the other side, and it actually proved easier to pull this thing out, the shaft thing, out from where this had been glued up before, and I think that's just Evo stick. So I pulled that out. This is in there really tight. I've got no doubt that if I put this in a vise and really pulled, it would come out. But that's what I did when I was when I was doing the truss rod. I was very careful to make sure that this was HDPE. This was very easy to sort of pull out. That it was very, very waxed up and so on. So I'm not going to actually pull that out. I'm just going to put it back together. But you know, that's work. That's solid. There's no slack in that. So let's. So I think that gives you the principle enough. What I was hoping for was something more like that, which is with the old glue, where I basically just got the stuff around there. But anyway, I think that's the principle is shown. The important thing for me is to have the door handle working properly. So this stuff is amazing, absolutely amazing. So there we go. Not the most technically challenging job in the world, but there is absolutely no slack there. That's the one that there was some slack on. And so as soon as you turn it, that comes in there, and it's turned from one of those horrible old sloppy sort of door handles with plenty of slack to something that works, and that's just using the JB Weld. Now I've let it cure for 24 hours. My experience, what I did with the truss rod is I let it cure for a bit longer than that actually, but that's plenty strong after that time. So yeah, there you go. So now let's have a look at the rest of the truss rod, which was the real job I bought the JB Weld for. But anyway, at least I now have a non-sloppy door handle that's not going to get worse and worse and worse. Right, so good news and bad news. Can you see that in the light? This was a total success, actually, cutting the new hexagonal hole for the Allen key in here. That's really nice and tight, and that's fine. And that probably that new epoxy metal is probably stronger than the original. Now, what I was hoping to do, because as I say, I wasn't going to buy a new one of these, because with the postage etc. from the USA, a $10 part would cost me over $80, and there's probably even import, so it's probably about $100 for that, and I could buy a new neck for that. But the bad news is I went to put this back in the neck, which I thought would just slot in, it just won't go. Now I can't show you because it's difficult to get in there, but there's actually like a metal sleeve in there, and I think it was either badly formed originally, or when I tried to take this out, I've actually sort of broken it and messed it up. So what I've got to do is split this neck to get the truss rod out, and that means, see this dark wood? It means splitting that apart all the way up the nut, all the way up the neck, and I'm really not looking forward to it. I'll show you how I do it in a second. Also, this was a real Friday base. Look at this. There are supposed to be 4 holes in there, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. all together. This is where this is attached to the neck, to the body. Sorry, because there is a plate that goes onto it, and there are just supposed to be 4 holes. So they've obviously tried to. This is obviously a Friday evening, trying to get home G and L. It's a lovely neck, but boy has it been made badly. Anyway, what I need to do to do this is implements you might find around the home. An iron, I've never had an iron before, and a palette knife. This is actually for putting icing on, and a brand new, what's it called, an ironing board that has never been used before. So this is going to be scary. Let's just see how this works. And I'm forcing these two to watch, just in case they ever dare do anything with their truss rods and get their neck warped. I wouldn't do it on the double base, because basically the neck on the double base is the size of a small or medium sized tree. So as I say, these two guys are going to be watching this to see what could happen with them if they dare misbehave. Oh, the other thing I'm very worried about, but it's very easily fixable, is there are little dots, you know, the things that tell you where your fingers are. And I've seen on YouTube videos people do that and they kind of pop out. I've managed to get this in. Where the joint is. And I can see that that's probably won't be able to see that, but that is splitting beyond where the actual knife thing is. So what I don't want to do, on the other side, yeah, it's worked on one side but not on the other. On that side, it's split the wood a little bit. On the other side, it is actually doing the ungluing. So I just need to go a bit more gentle with this. Right, so this knife seems to be a better option than the palette knife. It's got a bit of an edge to it, which at the beginning was a bit of a problem because it was cutting into the wood. A slow job, but as you can see, hopefully, that is actually, see if I can get it so you can see under the wood, that is actually splitting it out quite nicely. So that means that I should switch the camera off for a while. I can put iTunes back on so I don't get a copyright strike, and I can continue to, dear oh dear, the things that we do to try and fix things. But this is the thing, don't be scared to tackle something you've never done before. So what's the worst that could happen? I'd have to buy a cheap neck. So there we are, 2 separate pieces, and there is the truss rod underneath. This is quite unusual. I've not actually seen anything that looks like this. I did worry that this blue stuff might be epoxy, but I think it's just the plastic coating that allows the truss rod to actually move and not get stuck on the side. So I need to get that out and have a look at it. And at the top there, that's the sort of the metal cylinder. But as I say, I need to take that apart to see how it really works. This came off relatively well. I should have used a blunter knife because there's a couple of areas where I have actually damaged. I don't know if you can see it. It's not a huge amount of damage. There's a much bigger one there where the glue stayed stuck and it was actually the wood that split. Yeah, you can see that there. But yeah, if I'd have had a blunter knife, that would have kind of peeled it more, because unfortunately the knife cut into the wood, because this wood is not that. Right, so here's the deal. Basically, I prized this end up first and then pulled it out. This plastic is literally just some plastic tape that I should probably reuse actually, it's not too badly damaged, I think, to just stop it sticking inside. So what they did, this channel at this end is slightly wider, so they obviously shoved it in there and then knocked it in. And this bit that I showed you earlier, that goes in there, although I have wrecked that a little bit. I think I can't blame this bit on G&L. That was me trying to get this out. it would have possibly been better to strip the front off and take the truss rod off. But you know, you never know what lays beneath, because I haven't quite seen a truss rod like this. It is a dual action one. If I pull this tape back a little bit, you can hopefully see there's a sort of a flat bar at that's the side nearest to the actual fingerboard or fretboard, and then there's a separate bar underneath. So and the separate bar underneath is round, goes in there. So as you screw that, right, I don't know if this is going to work. What I'm going to attempt to do is I've screwed that thing back in there that I fixed. I've got the Allen key on there. I think you can see that this is relatively straight. If I show it end on, I'm going to put it in this little microphone stand thing so I can hold it more steady. The bottom bit where I'm running my finger along, that's the fingerboard. So if you had this in the guitar, as you can see, that's straight, and I tighten it up even gradually, it starts to curve quite considerably. Can you see that? That's really quite, you know, what's that, about one turn, and that really is curved. This is why when you see these instructions of how to, look at that, you can see when you see these instructions of how to adjust your truss rod, that you should do it gently. Now what I'm wondering is, should we put truss rods on our masts? Would that be a way of actually, tell me, are there carbon fibre unstayed masks with truss rods in? But look at that, that's amazing. You can really sort of tweak that gently, and if I undo it, I loosen it, it very quickly straightens out. So if you're adjusting the truss rod on your guitar, be gentle, because it doesn't take very many turns. Right, so it's all clamped up beautifully and waiting to dry, and you may have noticed that I've got my electric bike behind it, which I brought into the house simply to charge up. So I put all this in front of it, clamped it up, and then I needed to go out on the bike, but I didn't dare move it in case I jogged any of this stuff and sort of upset it. So this is it actually after it's been left overnight. So I'm going to take that all off, refit it, get the guitar set up. I won't bore you with that, and see if it's worked, and see if I can get it so that the truss rod actually works in situ. Right, so anyway, just to prove that yes, I do occasionally finish a project, here it is all back together. Had a bit of a problem putting the fingerboard back on because I'm not used to that type of glue, and it kind of squished a little bit. There is a trick that you can do to sprinkle some sort of rough salt on it, push it together, it cuts into the wood a little bit and then it won't slip, but I didn't do that, so I had to do quite a considerable bit of sanding on the, I don't know if you can see it, on the edge, but it's all nice and smooth, it's all nice and rounded, it's absolutely fine. I put exactly the right amount of curve that I wanted into it, so it's matching the other guitar, which this is the one that I plan to take on the boat. This is just a cheap Ibanez that I converted to passive pickup, so it shouldn't rust too much. But yeah, so this is good. That I'm probably not going to adjust it very much, but I'm really happy at the way that metal epoxy works. So you know, if there are other projects, I'd be quite happy to use that. Very easy to use, very strong. I have used a similar thing in the past to fix an engine block on a car, but yeah, this is great. By the way, sorry, I've got nails at the moment because we've been playing the guitar, and I don't really like to have nails when I play the bass. Clicking, can't you? So be gentle, stuff like that. None of this. I think you can probably hear that clipping. That would be too rough. So yeah, very happy with this. little while now actually, so anyway. Wonderful, the project finished. By the way, if all the files have gone, because I had a problem, I had to replace my hard disk, and I probably mentioned that at the beginning, but if all my files and stuff have gone, you're probably thinking, why are you talking about fixing your bass? We didn't see any of that. I might have lost all the files that I did when I was actually fixing this up. Such is life. Anyway, time is tight, as they say. So right, see you in the next segment. So there you go. Sorry about that last little bit of guitar work. It's a real problem. If you play the bass and you've got nails, it's a real problem. So and it was also clipping, but I can't be bothered to redo that. Yeah, the JB Weld stuff is absolutely phenomenal. I think the trick is not whether it will stick, because it will stick. It'll stick really solidly. It's how to make sure it doesn't stick to the things that you don't want it to stick to. And it could have all gone horribly wrong doing it with the truss rod. Now in theory, I was going to say in theory, could I have done that with this in situ? No, I couldn't have, because it would have gone down so that little bullet thing couldn't have turned. But yeah, okie doke. I shall say goodbye to you all then, and I shall see you for the Christmas special, which I haven't even started to think about yet. And crikey, it'll be the new year soon. So see you then. Cheers, bye.